Volkswagen. You hear the name and you probably picture a car. Maybe it's the classic Beetle, maybe it's the Golf your family had. But the real story behind that badge, it's this wild ride of unbelievable success, a truly devastating scandal, and a journey that has completely shaped the cars we drive today.
Okay, just look at this. On one side, you've got the raw mechanical Golf GTI from the 70s, a total icon for drivers. And on the other, the silent, sleek, all-electric ID3, basically a computer on wheels. So how on earth did the same company get from point A to point B? Well, strap in because that journey is one of the most fascinating and frankly controversial stories in the entire auto industry.
To really get Volkswagen, you have to go right back to the start. And let's be honest, it's a very complicated beginning.
Volkswagen wasn't dreamed up in some inventor's garage. It was born on May 28, 1937, as a political project, a state-owned company under Adolf Hitler's Nazi government. The brilliant engineer Ferdinand Porsche got the job to design the car, but before they could really get rolling, the world went to war. And the factory's mission, well, it changed completely. You know, the name itself tells you everything. Volkswagen. It literally means the people's car. The whole point was to build a car that was simple, tough, and cheap enough for just about any family in Germany to afford. The goal was a price tag under 1,000 Reichmarks, which, at the time, was an incredibly ambitious idea. And this quote right here just lays it all out. These are Adolf Hitler's own words from 1938, and they show you just how tangled up this car was with the political propaganda of the era. This wasn't just about transportation. It was a powerful symbol for a promised new future. So after the war, Germany is in ruins, the Volkswagen factory is a wreck. I mean, the story really should have ended right there. But somehow it became the start of this unbelievable comeback and the birth of a true global icon. And here's where the story takes a crazy turn. The person who saved Volkswagen wasn't German. It was a British Army officer, Major Ivan Hurst. He was put in charge of the bombed-out factory. Now, he could have just dismantled it for parts, but instead, he saw potential. He got the rubble cleared out and fired up the assembly lines again, at first just to build vehicles for the Allied forces. And wow, what a good call that was. It kicked off one of the biggest success stories in car history. Just look at that number. Over 21 million original Beetles were made. For decades, you saw them everywhere. It became this symbol of Germany's economic recovery, and, in a wild twist, a beloved icon of the 60s counterculture, from surfers in California to students all over the world. But, nothing lasts forever. By the time the 70s rolled around, the world was changing, and Volkswagen knew it had to change right along with it. Let's face it, the Beetle's design was charming, but it was getting old. Sales were dropping, and the company was getting hammered by newer, more modern compact cars. Volkswagen was in a tough spot. They desperately needed a new hit, something that could carry that people's car spirit into a new generation. And this was their answer, the Golf. Hitting the scene in 1974, it was the total opposite of the Beetle. Engine in the front-wheel drive, water-cooled, with this super practical hatchback design. It wasn't just a replacement, it was a revolution. It was so good it basically created a whole new class of car, the Golf class. Then, with the second-generation Golf, VW figured out its secret sauce. Evolution, not revolution. The idea was to keep refining it, keep improving the engineering, but never, ever lose the core of what made the first ones so great. And that exact thinking continues right up to today. I mean, the newest Golf is jam-packed with tech, but you can still see the DNA of that very first model from 50 years ago. It's just proof of how timeless that original design really was. So for decades, Volkswagen built this rock-solid reputation for quality and engineering. But in 2015, that reputation didn't just crack. It was completely shattered by a scandal that would shake the company to its absolute core. The date was September 18, 2015. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency dropped a bombshell. They accused Volkswagen of deliberately and illegally using software to cheat on emissions tests for their clean diesel cars. The company had been caught in a massive, intentional lie. So how'd they do it? It was a sneaky bit of code called a defeat device. Here's how it worked, basically. When the car's software figuring out it was being tested in a lab, the steering wheel isn't moving, only 2 wheels are spinning, it would turn on all the emissions controls and pass the test. But the second it knew it was on a real road, boom, it would switch those controls off to get better mileage and performance. And what did that mean in the real world? Well, out on the highway, where it actually counts, these so-called clean diesel cars were pumping out nasty pollutants that levels up to 35 times higher than the legal limit. This wasn't a small fudge of the numbers, it was a complete betrayal of environmental laws and their customers. And we're not talking about a handful of cars here. This was a global deception. Volkswagen eventually came clean and admitted that 11 million of its cars, all over the world, had this software. Millions of people bought these cars thinking they were doing something good for the environment, and it was all a lie. The fallout was swift. The CEO, Martin Winterkorn, was out. He resigned, giving this apology. But the damage was done. The scandal ended up costing Volkswagen tens of billions in fines and recalls, but the damage to its reputation, you can't even put a price on that. But sometimes a crisis forces you to change. With its whole clean diesel strategy in flames, Volkswagen had to do something drastic. So it took all of its massive resources and aimed them at a radical new mission: to become a leader in electric cars. And this chart right here shows you they are not messing around. In 2023, the Volkswagen Group delivered over 770,000 all-electric vehicles. That's a 35% jump in just 1 year. This isn't just a course correction, it's a full-blown transformation. And just to get your head around the scale of this whole thing, look at these numbers. We're talking about a company with almost 700,000 employees and revenue over 300 billion euros. It's a massive industrial giant that's now trying to steer itself toward a completely electric future. This chart shows you where the battle is being fought. Sure, Europe and North America are huge, but the real future will be decided here. More than half of all their cars are sold in the Asia-Pacific region. Winning the EV race there, it's everything. So this is where Volkswagen's incredible story has brought us. From a controversial people's car to world domination to a near-total collapse from its own deception. And now it's betting the entire company on an electric future. So the big question is, can this company, which has already reinvented itself so many times, do it one last time and redefine mobility for everyone? Well, that's a story that's still being written.